Okay, great. We are on. I apologize to you guys watching this in the replay. This was supposed to be live. However, Dawn and I will be happy to answer any questions you have after I upload this to YouTube and share it on the Facebook page. So thanks for watching and listening to Dawn's story. Dawn is my friend here. Dawn, I met as a client and immediately felt her to be a kindred spirit and felt like we would be connecting again. And we have, and I just feel like such a friendship with Dawn. And it was such an honor and a pleasure to meet her two boys in spirit, Jared and Gage. Dawn is also a licensed psychotherapist. She is a mom of 4 children, 2 in spirit and 2 here in body on earth. And Dawn, if it's okay with you, I will let you go ahead and share the story that you shared with me about I don't want to get them, I might botch it. So this is all about children in spirit and Dawn's personal story of connection with this topic.
Okay. So kind of give you a little bit of a backstory. My ex-husband has a son and daughter-in-law, had a son and daughter-in-law, and they came out to see us years ago. And they had a little 2-year-old girl, which I really connected with when she got out here. Since then, we were divorced, and I kept contact with that little 2-year-old who's now in her 20s. And we just kind of kept general contact on Facebook, hi, how are you kind of thing. Really didn't talk a lot. She knew of my son, Gage, but she had never met him. So the interesting thing was about a week or so ago, she reached out to me and left a message in Messenger and asked me if I believed in spirit and children being able to see spirit, young children. And I went, go ahead. And so she told me this story of her daughter that I want to say is kindergarten, maybe a little bit younger. And she was in her bedroom talking and her mom was hearing her, and she kind of chatters a lot anyway. But her mom got curious because she felt like her daughter was really talking to someone. So she went in the bedroom and observed her daughter just looking off to a corner and answering questions. She was a little taken aback at first and shared with me, who are you talking to? And she said, right there, I'm talking to him. And her mom said, who are you talking to? And she said, Gage. And her mom, whose name is Sam, was taken aback a little bit because I had the only Gage she'd ever known or known of. And then she didn't think too much of it right then, she said, and went kind of out. A little later was looking up a post that I had made on Facebook about my son, Gage, where he was singing. And she said she was looking at it and her daughter came around the corner. She goes, that's him, that's Gage. And so she was quite surprised, shocked, and pretty excited about it. So we kind of talked a little bit about, yeah, I believe that was absolutely Gage.
Yeah, I love that. And so her daughter, the little girl, had never met Gage, right? Obviously had never met Gage, but had never, like, I think when you told me, right, and like wasn't familiar with him at all. Like,
he had no familiarity, didn't know the name, didn't have any connection because it's just, I knew Sam when she was 2.
yeah.
And she didn't have any memory of Gage, and they live in New York, so we hadn't been in any physical contact for years and years and years. So she had no idea who it was.
Yeah, and for those listening, you're in Colorado. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dawn, when you shared that with me, I just knew, I'm like, I have to share the story, not to share it. And I was like, no, Dawn has to tell the story. So whether that was Gage impressing that upon me or what, it's just an amazing story, but also I think that happens so much more than we realize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that
children, I think so.
Yeah, you just happen to get the validation for it, right?
Very much, yes. Yes, yeah. Which it was interesting because I'd had 2 or 3 validations right then in a group. One that you had spoken to somebody that Gage came through and talked for you a little. And just, I had a couple of unique experiences just kind of clustered with him letting me know I'm here.
Yeah, I love that. And for our viewers, a little backstory on that is what it probably been months since I had personally connected with Gage, or I'm not sure how long it had been, but Dawn didn't know that just the day before in a group, Gage had come through. And Dawn didn't know that when she messaged me the next day wanting to share this story. So no coincidence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And did you say you were
It was,
close to Gage's birthday as well?
yes, his birthday's January 8th.
Yeah, I love that. The birthday, holidays, even more reason for him to want to make his presence known. Even though I know we've spoken, Dawn, and I know that you feel close to Gage and Jared both in spirit and feel like they're around, and don't necessarily need that to know they're around, but it's always nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been an interesting sort of turn of events for me. I obviously, when I reached out to you several years, I guess a couple of years ago or something, it's been a while. It was like I was wanting some more validation. I'd had a lot of signs and things, but I still felt sort of like a disconnect. And we'd met a couple of times, and somewhere in there, something connected and clicked. And all I have to do is think of them, and I feel their physical presence. They're touching me, each one on each shoulder.
Love that. I just got goosebumps when you said that. I love that they do that and that you are that aware and tuned into them and their presence.
Well, I think they made themselves really well known. I couldn't not hear them because they were out of.
Yeah, totally. I know, and I was thinking that I was like, it may have been a year, or I don't know what it was last when I connected with Gage, but the fact that that just happened the day before, and when you heard the story, again, just so amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I also would love personally to hear if you want to share anything about Gage and Jared, about them, any stories or just anything about your boys. I love getting to meet Spirit in a connection, but I just get that little bit of what they want to share. So I don't always have the opportunity to hear stories about them here from Mama or whoever it might be, so if you want to share it with me and anybody watching this, just, yeah, anything special about your boys, we would love to hear.
Well, I guess the most interesting part of it, or for whatever, for me, both of them were jokesters.
Mhm.
So they played pranks, particularly Jared, who was older than Gage. He really was a prankster. Shortly after he passed, we had some knickknack things on a shelf, and I would leave the room and come back and they were physically turned around. And I thought, that's really weird. And that happened 2 or 3 times. And then I even slammed the door, I pushed against the wall, I did everything, and they never moved. But I would walk out of the room 5 or 10 minutes or something, come back, and one or the other was moved out of them. So for me, I knew that was instantly Jared.
Yeah.
And later, when Gage passed, I got all kinds of weird signs, but one of them, I don't know if I told you this story. He used to love to lay on the couch and eat pistachio nuts. And he was a bratty late teenager, about 18 or so. And he would take those pistachio shells and toss them up over the television onto the entertainment center. Well, after he had passed, sometime after that, I completely cleaned everything and moved everything out, and we spotless back there. So I knew there wasn't anything back there. And I want to say a few weeks later or so, or even later than that, maybe, I walked home, and I have not had any pistachios in years. And I walked in, and on my floor was half a pistachio shell. I thought, where did this come from? And I picked it up and threw it in the trash, and then went to bed. The next morning I got up and it was sitting in the kitchen floor right by the trash. And I said, okay, I get it. So I picked it up and I threw it in I have a little memento box when I get things from them that I put it in the box if I get something physical. So it went in his little memento box.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
It's been really interesting. And I have a daughter that's currently alive. And you've met her, you know who she is. She has also had some experiences when she was a child. So I think this kind of runs through our family. I had experience as a child of connecting with strange things, and she has. And interestingly enough, she couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 at the most. I think she was probably about 6. And she had woke in the middle of the night and came to get me up out of bed because she'd had a dream, but it wasn't scary, but she'd had some kind of a strange dream, she said. And she described it to me. And it was about a woman standing at the foot of her bed, and she had like a leather sort of helmet thing on. And she went into great detail who this was. And it just connected with me. And I got a picture and showed her a picture of Amelia Earhart. And she said that's what it was. Now, I thought that was really interesting. And that was before either one of my boys passed.
Wow.
So she'd had certain connections back then.
Wow. Wow. So fascinating. I love the mystery of it all. So
Oh, I do too. It's interesting, very interesting. But
yeah.
yes, I'm open for any questions if anybody has anything, because I'll be happy to share anything.
Sure. And because they're going to have to watch this after the fact, thanks for that, Dawn, and going back and maybe reading some questions after the fact, or we'll be in touch with that, the best way to do that. So yeah, thanks for that, making yourself available that way. How about yourself? Like you mentioned, like experiences when you were a child, since the topic is about children and seeing spirit. Would you like to share any?
I don't know exactly what all happened when I was a child, but I know I had experiences and I would reach out and talk to my mother about them. I definitely saw people in colors, and I could tell a lot about people by the colors I could see around them. So now as an adult, I realize it was auras, but connecting with spirit, I would talk to my mother and she'd say, stop that, stop talking about that, stop that, that's, you know. And so I stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I have had odd things come through, but really my children more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to that, to the not remembering clearly, but remembering specific times. Like some parts of the memories are very vivid, like where I was at, what was happening, exactly who I was talking to, who I was seeing. I couldn't tell you, but I remember being very, very small, probably 3 or 4, and having this little play table and my teddy bear and my dolls. And it wasn't that I was talking to the teddy bear and dolls, it's that I was playing with other children there, even though I was there alone, So I know that now makes sense to me, as I'm sure there were children in spirit there that I was connecting with. And also some experiences as well of seeing other figures in my room. And those were more scary to me. I don't know if it's because they were adult or because it happened at night. Or what, but I believe around that time, I started not seeing spirit so vividly, but definitely have similar experiences like that, but couldn't tell you who I was connecting with at that time. But I think that's so common. And I love that the story that you shared about the figurines turning around. Because before we got on, I felt like Spirit impressed upon me to talk about, just a couple of tips where, and nurturing this in children, because it's totally normal. I feel like children are the best mediums that we have. Really. And I believe it's totally normal for all young children to sense spirit. And then some children, of course, are going to have, be able to in a stronger way, or have soul connections with loved ones on the spirit side that are strong and maybe serve to put them on a spiritual path later in life. And so it may continue, after beyond the age where it typically happens, but I believe that we shut it down as a society so easily, and I don't believe that there's anything that I don't think we should make a big deal about it, but I also see how we really, from an early age, even if they're, in a family that is open and doesn't project any fear onto them and doesn't have any maybe fearful religious beliefs or otherwise around it, think about like all the kids' cartoons that portray ghosts, like in a scary way. It's just infiltrated into our society, into our culture, and that children, even from a very young age, begin to associate ghost with scary things and like the moving objects, right? And so it's, I believe, very common that children will start to shut that down, even if they are in a home that is open and accepting and, not making a big deal about it, but maybe having conversations like, I don't know, I don't have grandchildren yet, but if I did, maybe, oh, honey, well, that, those are good conversation starters, like if we're watching a cartoon and you see ghost or something. I personally don't believe in ghosts in the way that we portray them to, ghost, but that anybody's stuck here, anything like that. But it could be a good conversation with, oh, well, like Uncle Perry is around, and sometimes, our loved ones want us to know they're watching over them. So maybe they bang on the window, or maybe they move the objects, but it's to let us know that they're watching over us, let us know that they're with us still. I don't know if you have thoughts about that as well, Don, but
One of the most interesting things that I've come across numerous times have been people talk to me about being afraid. I was never afraid anytime I had a connection when I was young. To me, it just felt normal. I remember it just feeling like I was talking to somebody, but I never felt fear. I felt shame when my mother said, "Stop doing that. That's not okay." Then I got worried that something was kind of wrong. But until then, I never had fear with anything. And ghosts, what's portrayed, never made sense to me.
right. Yeah. I love that. And I love that you differentiate there between fear and shame, because I've talked about, even with my path coming out as a medium and coming from a place of having a very religious background, I was never afraid of my experiences, but afraid of what people would think, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's what we kind of indoctrinate, into children. Sometimes is that being what is acceptable, right? So maybe I agree that I think children are the most open and are less afraid than us because they haven't yet been indoctrinated. But at some point, maybe it is, they do, other people do project fear onto them, and or they begin to know that it's not appropriate and don't want to be the odd person talking about it,
Yeah.
um, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
anything
I'm not
else?
quite sure. I'm not absolutely positive yet, but I think my youngest granddaughter has been kind of babbling to somebody. And I don't know if it's Gage or Jared, but it's somebody she's been babbling with, because
Yeah.
she has little baby discussions and she's looking off. She's not like looking at me or looking at her mom. She's talking to somebody. And her
Yes.
mom has shared with me that there's been a couple of times she felt that that's what was happening.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And it wasn't until we sat down that I made that connection. Oh, yeah, you're the perfect person to talk to as well because you were a grandma too. And and what a blessing for her to be raised with you and her mom, who is going to be able to nurture that and kind of like counteract anything that as she grows and learns from society about that, right? Um,
Yeah, there's a huge sense of relief or something in it when you finally can come to terms with it's okay. It's just
yes.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's the most natural, the conversation. To me, it's like the most natural form of connection. It's when we can get rid of all the distractions, the man-made distractions that we tune in. And that's why I think I always like to say it feels the most natural, like the most natural connection to me. Yet we make this something that's, you know, bad or unnatural, and which is completely false, you know. And I love that you talked about your little grandbaby looking and babbling, because a lot of times that's how spirit will show me in readings that there is a child here that they're able to connect with, and the child's able to easily see them. And when it comes to babies, it's very common, when they're laying in their crib and looking up at their mobile, or pointing at pictures of maybe Uncle Gage or Uncle Jared, and the babbling, like they're talking to someone, because they truly are, right? And young children and animals too. Animals, for some reason, when in a reading, it seems very similar. The openness that our animals have, and like young children and babies have to spirit, and which I think when you think about, they're the purest of all, really, right? Animals and babies, young children, and again, haven't yet been indoctrinated into to know anything different, but yeah, I love that. And I'm
So
sure
you kind
continue.
of answered my question, but I sort of had a question for you, but you sort of answered it.
Yeah.
So apparently you've had experiences yourself where spirit has come through and mentioned that they've spoken with children and that there's an availability there. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's always fascinating to me when it is someone who may not even be an immediate member of the family. Like, let's there may be a niece or a nephew that maybe the person in spirit didn't even know here, in body, or just wasn't close to, and will come through with such validation, sometimes like names and where they were recently at, where the child was at, and that kind of thing. And so sometimes too, through artwork, they'll give a validation of they gave you this picture, and they drew a picture of them. I think spirit connects through children through, it's maybe evident in artwork sometimes, if that makes sense, what the pictures that they draw.
Absolutely.
So paying attention to your children's artwork can be a thing too. But yeah, absolutely, they do. It's very, very common occurrence, actually. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Do you have any other questions or thoughts that you'd like to share with our viewers?
I don't think so, but I'm willing to answer anything anybody has, and I'm sure things will come to me eventually again, but I think I forget more than I remember.
I know. I understand that for sure. I have the same experiences. So I will just go ahead and say, too, I'm going to try this again Thursday. For anybody watching, Thursday evening with Diane Wickline, we're going to do a little Christmas candle lighting ceremony. And Diane is a mom, another client who I've become acquainted with. And I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do. I just know it was another spirit-led thing. I have to believe that Bobby, her son, and Jared and Gage knew all about this, the timing of this with the whole 20 days of Christmas thing. I don't believe that's a coincidence either. Do you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, because I was like, just prior to you messaging that, I was thinking, I feel like something big's going to happen, like maybe and I didn't know what, but then the idea came to me after I talked to you, after I said, do you mind if I share? And you said, no, of course not. And I thought, I have to believe it was Jared and Gage, but just the thought came to me about just have Dawn come on and share. So I just have to get the earthly technical details ironed out so that we can make it more interactive. But this was, I'll just say it was meant to be this way today. And we will let people comment after they watch it. And what I'll do is I'll upload this to YouTube and then share it to the Facebook page. And so people will be able to see it on YouTube as well as Facebook. And we'll.
I really like the idea. I like this idea, Rachel. I think it's very a unique approach, but you also are involving other people kind of in this. And I think this is awesome.
Yay. Hey, me too. Me too. I don't want to say selfishly, because I know other people will love hearing stories too, but I love, like I said, I get certain information that comes through in a reading, whatever, like, your boys, our loved ones want to share. And I love being able to hear more about them as well. And I love that aspect of it too. So being able to share about our loved ones this way and topics I'm sure they'll bring to mind. But yeah, so thank you, Dawn, for being so patient. You guys, the technical difficulties were all on my end. We came on Zoom, and then I discovered that I could only share from Zoom to my personal page. And then we went on Facebook, and I could not get Dawn in my room. So yeah, it's all on my end, but Dawn has been nothing but patient here this afternoon. So thank you, Dawn.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. This has been very enlightening, to say the least. It's been nice to share. The timing was perfect. I think it's perfect. So it was a great time for me to share that.
I'm so glad. And thank you for being so agreeable and just expressing that and giving us your time and sharing. So thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day and a lovely Christmas.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.